Hello, you're watching B2B TV brought to you by True. Welcome to the first episode of Under the Influence, a brand new series where we'll be discussing a range of B2B marketing topics. In today's show, we'll be talking about effectiveness in B2B marketing. Please do get involved, send us your comments, join the discussion using the hashtag B2B TV. I'm joined by my co-host Richard Parsons. Richard, we've just undertook a brand index study. Do you want to tell the audience a bit about that?
Yeah, so we've conducted over the last 2 years the world's largest B2B brand study. We looked at 800 case studies across 23 sectors in 26 economies. And so we think it's the kind of pinnacle of research that's out there for B2B.
Emotion in B2B is a very well documented subject area. It has been over the last few years. Why do you think it is that people are still focusing on short-term sales goals, and what is it that's come out of the brand index study that's really shouting and proving the fact that people should still be focusing back on brand?
Well, the main thing that we wanted to prove is, and to support really, is the fight between the performance marketers and the brand marketers. We feel that there's been a wave of technologies that are coming that support the performance marketers, and the brand marketers have been left behind a little bit. So we've looked at this brand study as being a way of giving some empirical evidence for those brand marketers. And one of the things that we want to look at is this rule of three. So way back in the 70s, there was research that came out of the Boston Consulting Group where we were looking at in any mature market, there were three leading brands. You had the first brand that typically had 40% market share, the second brand with 30% market share, and the third brand with 20%. And everybody else, maybe all the other 10, 20, that would be the remainder 10. What we want to look at is how that, at the macro level, could play at the micro level. So we were especially interested in emotion in B2B and how the rule of three really supported the argument for creativity and emotion in B2B.
Yeah. What do you think is pushing people towards performance marketing constantly? I mean, so many of our clients are always focused on short-term goals, just lead generation campaigns, as opposed to putting all their efforts into brand, when we see so much effectiveness coming from those brand campaigns when you're supporting those with rational arguments.
I think the technology platforms have been kind of instrumental in that change. So that as email marketing came in, and you were able to start to measure with pinpoint accuracy open rates and click-through rates, what we've really seen is those metrics are focused on the efficiencies of marketing rather than the effectiveness of marketing. So what our study has taught us is that the rule of three that worked at the mature market level is now also working at the individual purchase. So what's interesting is we find that even in a new market, someone who comes into the market, they're a customer or prospect, and they have a recognition of a problem, they look for a solution. The first place they look for a solution is in their head, and they come up with 1, 2, 3 brands that they think can answer that problem. It's an emotional connection. It's deep in their brain, the limbic part of their brain that is enabling them to come up with that answer. It happens in nanoseconds. And then what's interesting is then when you protract the buying process, and it might in a large corporation for a strategic purchase be for let's say a $10,000 purchase, 21 people involved in that buying unit, that what we see is over that 18-month period a whole bunch of rational thinking coming in, which is exactly the same way that our brain works when we're asking, do you want a cup of tea or do you want a cup of coffee? The limbic region fires up, and then a few nanoseconds later the flabby outer part of our brains catches up, and we really see it, and that thinks it's the rational part of it. That's the bit that thinks that it's making all the purchase or the decisions in that instance. We're finding that actually play out in the entire buying process. So I think it comes back to the fact that we can measure everything. These platforms are causing us this problem. We can measure everything, but I'm going to use a phrase that Jeremy Bullmore from WPP uses, which is that we're using those metrics the same way a drunk uses a lamppost. It's more for support and less for illumination. We need to be really kind of going back to basics and realising that these platforms are, enablers, and we should be using them. We're not not saying we should be anti these platforms or anti-rational communication. What we should be, though, is understanding that we're talking to human beings, and human beings are engaging in the same way that they have done for millennia. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, the rise of the millennials in B2B marketing, the way they're consuming content, absolutely is playing a part in that as well. I think some of the most emotional content pieces are video based. And we're starting to see a shift towards video, but I think sometimes budgets seem to be prohibitive for a lot of our clients.
Yeah, there are. When you look at the study threw up that the emotion in B2B is where we need to be. We need to be around when the buyer wants to buy, and we want to be in that first phase of one of those three brands. One of those three brands, remember, gets or not one of them, but all three of them, if you like, get 90% of the sale.
And not all three of them get 90%, that wouldn't be possible.
All three, correct. All three together can get 90%. Yeah. You're quite right. But typically, one's going to get 40% of the leads, one of them's going to get 30, and then one's going to get 20.
Yeah.
So this emotional connection is absolutely key, and content plays a role there. And you're right to highlight that actually video and other different content types play a role. So if you just have to go back to some of the old basic media planning, that emotional connections, for example, cinema plays a much bigger role in creating those emotional connections than something like YouTube might. So we see that cinema is more emotional than TV, but TV is more emotional than digital. And of course, YouTube is more emotional, video is more emotional than something like an online ad or a piece of a PDF content like thought leadership piece, like perhaps a white paper.
Absolutely. But I'd say with cinema, though, people are there to consume something. They're there to watch it. So they're fully engaged in it. I think that's probably plays a big part in it. I think, obviously, TV, they talk about TV being the second most emotional medium. And I think we're going to be talking about TV in a forthcoming show and how to target the C-suite, but that's for a later date.
That's right.
But overall, I mean, it comes back to the budget conversation. If you had £150,000 to spend, what's the research shown in terms of what proportion of that you should be spending on kind of brand awareness and emotional engagement versus more lead gen and sales pieces?
So what we found is that today, the majority of B2B brands spend something like 10% of their budget on brand, what you might call pure play brand, and then around 90% on product or sales promotion type pieces. So things that are quite close to the sale. What we found is that those brands that actually put that and turned that the other way around, so where it's something like 60%, often centralized marketing budgets, but where they're communicating more of a brand message, that those are the brands that are winning out. Because what we found is that over a 3-year period, at around about the halfway point, the 18-month period, that we've seen that up until 18 months, people are still searching for solutions. And this is now to do with search marketing. They're searching for solutions to their problems. Beyond the 18-month period, when they start to become aware of certain brands, they start to search for branded searches. Yeah. So solutions connected to certain brands. So what we found is that after a 3-year period, that if you invest in that brand and do the 60-40 split, that typically you start to really see some value at the 3-year phase of brand contributing more to your pipeline than your solution might.
Well, that should be an absolute objective then for all of our clients. It should be how they should be measuring how many branded searches are taking place, and that should be a good indicator as to how well they're performing on that front, I believe.
That's right. I think it comes down to, so back to the point that we're able to measure clicks and conversions right away through the funnel with these platforms. But what we're not doing is we're not measuring probably the most important metric, which is memorability. Yeah. So rather than measuring effectiveness of let's take an email that is a platform for delivering a message. Let's look at once someone opens that email and they engage with that content, how memorable was it? So we have a sort of subjective measure that we're using, which is how remarkable is it? In other words, will someone remark on it? Will they remark on it inside their 4 walls, or will they even remark on it on social networks to amplify your message? So this remarkable piece is a really good indicator. Your social sharing of your content is a really good indicator of memorability, actually.
And more can be found in the white paper that we've put together around this index study.
That's right. So we've conducted the index, the branding index. We're slicing and dicing the data. We've got our first report that's come out, and that's on our website at trueagency.com/B2B TV.
Thanks, Richard. Please do go to the link to download the white paper to read more. Also, don't forget to get involved via the hashtag B2B TV. And if you'd like to join us in the studio, email b2btv@trueagency.com. We really hope you've enjoyed the first show. Join us next time where we'll be discussing targeting the elusive C-suite. From myself and Richard, bye for now, and thanks for watching.